Alright everyone, Sweden has cleared the last hurdle to officially entering NATO. Viktor Orban has now signed off on their entry into the alliance. That was the last country, Hungary of course, originally Hungary and Turkey, that was holding out on membership for the Swedes. Now, this does not have a particularly calculable impact on NATO's ability to fight. Sweden's military is very small. It's a shell of its former self. I will give them credit, though. You make exquisite MREs, so your military budget did go to one good thing, I suppose, in the end. The mushroom stew, by the way, definitely top shelf. Oh, you'd buy that shit in a store, and you'd fucking love it. They got elk in some of them, too, I think. I think the Finnish and Norwegian MREs do, too. Maybe there's fucking reindeer or something like that. So Sweden will be in NATO. But it does have one geographical impact, which is that now, other than a couple of tiny bits of coastline in the North Sea, it's basically the NATO Sea at this point. The last country that maintained a non-allied stance there, although it was already an ally of the United States. You've got data sharing and everything else under the sun, weapon shipments. It's quite clear that the Western world is friends with Sweden. This was not up for negotiation. It's funny that Hungary was the last ones holding out. When the Turks say you're in NATO before the Hungarians, it's like things are a little bit topsy-turvy there. What it does is it creates an entire sea, basically, where Russia has very limited access. You've got Kaliningrad, and you've got a little coastline around St. Petersburg. That's basically it. Everything else, every other square inch of coastline is run by NATO. Creating one hell of a choke point, by the way, because of the extent of territorial waters in those countries, making it a little bit difficult for the Atlantic fleet to maneuver if you happen to be in Moscow. Black Sea, you do a little bit better. Although I would note the Ukrainians have gotten fairly good at using drone boats to blow up Russian vessels, actually, and do some heavy damage, so that's becoming dicey as well. By the way, you don't want to back the Russian bear too far into the corner, because when that happens, things may pop off. You realize they have thousands of nuclear weapons. Just saying. As far as my thoughts on NATO, I support NATO as an alliance. Expanding it is perfectly fine. Having an alliance in and of itself is not a war posturing. And countries have been doing this toe-to-toe game for a long time, and normally you just end up with proxy wars. You don't end up with, you're not going to see Russia, for example, invade Estonia. It's just not going to happen. It would be suicidal to do so. It would lead to World War III. The odds of it happening are phantasmagorically low at any given point in time. Inevitable in the long term, very, very low chance in our lifetimes that a nuclear war pops off. If anything, I'm much more worried that somebody will have a goddamn accident. You remember, like, back in the 70s under Carter, they fed the wrong tape into a training program. It was a simulation. I think the CIA was running it at the time. And they popped in the wrong cassette. Yes, back in the days when cassettes were computer components, by the way. And they thought it was being broadcast to all channels that there were Russian missiles inbound. And they thought it was real. And several people were skeptical, and they're like, I don't know that that's the most likely scenario. Something must be wrong, so we're not immediately going to call up the president and press the little red button. And thankfully they did that. Of course, Jimmy Carter probably wouldn't have pressed the button anyway. He's Jimmy Carter. And they diffused the situation, but they were very concerned. Had to call Moscow, actually, at the time. Did you just fire missiles at us? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, change the cassette, Andy. That almost happened. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, a Russian sub-commander is the only reason that we didn't end up in a hot nuclear conflict, by the way. The United States was ready to act, by the way. There was already contingency in play. Yes, we're going to fire the nukes if any nuclear weapons hit us. Of course, if you had launched a nuclear torpedo at a U.S. ship, that probably would not have gone off too well. Could have hit the coast of Florida or something like that. Irradiated a bunch of people. So, I mean, it's always a dangerous footing, but NATO's existence in and of itself is not really the problem. It's sort of like with Russia's military pact with Belarus. I don't think that's really a threat. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to have whatever allies they want, and it's like, who cares? I would say, though, again, for numeric purposes, Sweden entering NATO means very, very little. It means that better MREs will become more widely available, hopefully, to people in other states within the NATO alliance. I'd love another Swedish ration, by the way. anyone happens to want to hook me up. The price online is inordinate. It's insane at this point. You try getting MREs on eBay, even the common ones, paying through the nose, and for some reason they all come from Lithuania or Estonia. Somebody over in the Baltics keeps hoarding MREs and then selling them online. They're all over the goddamn place. It's where like half of them ship from. You can get all the MREs from them. They've got Russian, they've got Ukrainian, Polish, they've got their own native MREs, Swedish, Finnish, etc., Spanish. They've got some from Asia. So they never get CRMs from Australia, unfortunately. Those are definitely top-notch, especially with the musk-flavored Lifesavers. You probably would not like them. It's basically like chewing on perfume base. I personally like the smell and the flavor myself. So we'll see what happens with this. Russia will probably be upset about this. Europe has effectively become solidified. The only remaining states in Europe other than Ukraine and Belarus that are not in NATO at this point are a couple of landlocked states. So Serbia, Switzerland with their perpetual neutrality. That's basically it. Everyone else has basically entered the alliance. And it's the world's largest military alliance. I mean, I don't know how many tanks and planes collectively NATO fields, but it's an inordinate number. That's why when people talk about China rising, name their military allies. They've got a couple of them. It's not anywhere near as powerful as NATO as a military bloc. And keep in mind, most of the member states up till recently haven't even been paying their fair share into their militaries, forcing the United States to disproportionately crank out ships and shit like that. It's great to be the alliance leader, but, you know, we can't create every plane ourselves. Not unless you pay us, in which case you can have as many F-16s as you want. We got plenty in reserve. No problems, dude. Yeah, congratulations to the Swedes. Or, if you oppose this, you know, condolences. You know, you're now in a nuclear-capable military alliance that does make you a target if World War III pops off. The hope is that if NATO is very large and powerful, and Trump was trying to get that ball rolling, much to your dismay years ago. Now everyone's doing it themselves. I find that infinitely hilarious. The hope is that nobody dares to fuck with you. It's effectively peace through strength. Yes, I know that may sound like a misnomer, but actually it does work. Be nice, be kind, be diplomatic with people, but hope and pray that they don't fuck with you because then they all die. That's about all. Peace out.